media, books, TV. What other kind of media? Oh yeah, web stuff. There's all that web stuff. Think of every kind of media, and we produce it. And the point of all of it is to explain and defend the Catholic faith. So we're delighted to be with you here on Radio Maria. If you want to find more about Radio Maria, just visit them at radiomaria.us or download that app. What did he just say about the app? World Family, the World Family app. I hadn't heard that part before. I missed that. I got to go find that app. Assistant producer Marie O'Malley here with us. Hello, Marie.
Good morning. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. I got in trouble for calling you Marie O'Malley.
You did?
From the boss, from Chris Jack.
Oh, gosh.
He thought that was confusing. He said, Did she get married?
A few people asked me if I got married, but
really?
It's just, it's our inside joke.
It's a little inside joke.
Can you explain it to me? Because I have no clue what you're talking about.
Did you ever watch The Aristocats with your kids?
No.
Is it a Disney?
It's a Disney, yeah. It's the best Disney movie
It's a Disney movie about a family of cats.
Because everybody wants to be a cat, because the cat's the only cat who knows where it's at.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Nice.
I learn something new every day.
Nice job, Dr. Seuss.
Cool.
So go ahead, tell me more.
So there's a character in that movie named Marie, and her mother marries a cat gentleman whose last name is O'Malley. So she becomes Marie O'Malley because she gets
and Marie is very much like the Marie in the movie.
Okay.
Sassy. Needy.
No.
Are you needy?
No, I'm just kidding. But that's how the little cat is in the show. Anyway,
yes.
John Sorensen's with us today. That's who's been asking questions.
Yeah, I'm the weird guy asking.
John Sorensen.
I don't get the inside joke.
He's the director of everything here at. Is that your title, director of everything?
Yeah, kind of.
Or he's the COO.
Yeah.
Which I always think
the
of
coup.
As that. You're the coup. I always think of the COO as like the guy who has to deliver the bad news because the boss doesn't, the CEO doesn't want to.
Yeah. Can I drink delicious Mystic Monk coffee on the air? Can I plug those guys?
No, you cannot plug Mystic Monk coffee. Coffee made by monks. No, do not plug Mystic Monk coffee while you're on
Mystic Monk coffee.
Say that 10 times fast.
I know, I was having a little trouble there.
They send us coffee, which is great.
That is great.
Mystic Monk.
That is
awesome.
great. Free coffee is one of the best things that can happen to you. If it's good coffee.
When we had just the regular like cheesy brand coffee.
You got cheesy brand, huh?
Yeah. And we switched over to Mystic Monk.
Let me tell you, cheese should not be in coffee.
No, it's gross. It has a really weird aftertaste. But after we got good coffee in the building, productivity went up considerably. I don't know
is this
how
measurable?
Much. Well, it's hard to measure. But you can see it in the hall.
Morale went up for sure.
The glow on people's faces, on the highly caffeinated faces.
Yeah.
Here, because we're a Catholic apostolate, and we're really Catholic.
Yes.
I mean, I guess that came out the wrong way, but by really Catholic, I mean we still observe the Catholic feasts, which means that on Thursday we will be off. We will not be roaming the halls drinking free Mystic Monk coffee.
Exactly.
We will be off. Marie, do you know why? Marie O'Malley?
I do. It's the Feast of the Assumption of our Blessed Mother on Thursday.
Okay, so thank you for saying of our Blessed Mother, because lots of people might easily confuse the Ascension and the Assumption. Because they both have a kind of
similar.
And they have a kind of
but so very different
feel to them, flying up into the sky. But very different. Why? Well,
John? Because our separated Protestant brothers and sisters sometimes think that we believe that Mary just went up into heaven by her own power.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Ascension is what Jesus did. Assumption is what happened to Mary.
Okay, very good. That's a great point. Like she receives it as a gift. He can just do it.
He just did it.
He just does it. Why does he have the power to do something like that?
I don't know. He's God and all that stuff.
Oh, being God. Yeah, he can do whatever. Because we're going to talk about what Catholics know and don't know about their faith in a little bit from this Pew Research survey. But Jesus is God is one of the basics that I wonder if people get. And so it's important to remember the assumption. We are not talking about what Jesus did.
Right, yes. But also we don't, we're not like worshiping Mary in the, in that.
Oh, right, yeah, in the way that we're accused of sometimes.
Right, that she's got like God-like qualities about her or whatever.
Even though she was very holy, she was a human being.
Right.
But I think we are kind of celebrating what Jesus did because Jesus brought Mary into heaven in the way that he did.
Right.
And it was, we believe that the Virgin Mary had, no sin, right?
Right.
And so she was spared the pain of a normal death that, God decided to remove that for her and to assume her into heaven, which is really beautiful.
The old icons of it, and you still see these in some places, but the old icons of Mary's Assumption are beautiful because, first of all, the tradition is that the 12 apostles were there, and there's something miraculous about it, that miraculously the angels brought them there or something like that. But it doesn't have to be. But the tradition is that the 12 apostles are. It might have been 11 apostles at that time. James, I think, is already martyred, but I don't. So the apostles are there.
And Judas, not to derail, but Judas.
Well, they did replace Judas.
So it would have been Matthias. Is that the tradition? Do you know?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So the tradition is that they're there. So these paintings, or the early paintings from the first millennium of the church, will have the 12 apostles, and then Jesus in the middle of them, and he's holding Mary, and she's swaddled like a little baby. So it's like her. So it's like her.
I don't think I've seen that. That's so cute.
It's so beautiful too, because see what's happening is that she swaddled him as a infant, and so now he's showing his tender care for her. Because, of course, her relationship with God is a very complex one. I mean, she's the mother of God, but of course, like all of us, she's the child of God. And so that iconography of the 12 apostles with Jesus, have you got any of them there? Did you bring it up on the internet?
I pulled one up, and it's a little bit small here, but yeah, he's holding her swaddled as a baby.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Right. So this is a gift that he gives his mother. He raises her. Now, I wouldn't say raises her from the dead with absolute certainty, because there's some division within the church on this. But the longer tradition of the church is that she died, and as you said, her death is not a normal death. I mean, death is a consequence of sin. So if she dies, it's a participation in Christ's death that she probably had to choose, or but the tradition is she dies or suffers what's called the dormition, the falling asleep. Right. So what do they mean by the dormition? This is all.
The dormition is like more of like an Eastern Catholic thing, isn't it? Is that?
I don't know if it's Eastern.
In the Byzantine Church, we call it the dormition of Mary. So the falling asleep.
Right, but falling asleep can mean death as well. I mean, that's what St. Paul calls it. So.
Well, and when I think about it, I don't think, although Mary was without sin and she had, I'm sure she didn't want to stay on earth forever. That would not have been,
right.
To remain without sin and to avoid death forever and not be in complete union with her son in heaven would not have been a gift.
Well, she suffered many things that she didn't have to suffer because she's a sinless person. All of the things that are a consequence of sin, she doesn't have to suffer them, but she does.
Yeah.
She said yes.
She willingly
to them.
does. Yeah, she said, because she gave her fiat. She said yes. So, but the older tradition of the church is that she died. And so in these old paintings, you'll see her body is there. And so Christ has her soul in his arms. Is her body there in this picture?
Yeah, so he's cradling her as a baby, but her body is lying on this sort of tapestry covered looking,
right.
It looks like a bed or something.
Yeah.
And all of the apostles are on either side looking down at her. And she has the, I call it a halo. I don't know what it is in the iconography, the gold signifying.
That's fair to call it a halo. Yeah. So her sanctity.
Yeah.
So, and so the idea is there, okay, so when her soul leaves her body, Christ cradles her like a little baby. He takes care of her. But then immediately, I mean, I don't know if immediately means a day or 2 days or 3 days or what. He reunites her body and soul in her glorified body, or her body is made glorious, and off she goes.
I was reading something from Father Hugh on our website on Catholic.com, and he said that the church fathers and doctors of the church who wrote about the Assumption all were unanimous that she experienced bodily death
Yeah.
before being assumed.
Hmm.
But he kind of nuanced that. He said, well, there are two different thoughts on that, but one is really minority, the one that says that she was just alive and then assumed
Right.
right into heaven.
Yeah. But the church has never defined it. So you don't you're perfect. It's a speculation. Was it death or was it dormition? What exactly happened?
They point to Pius XII, his definite. He didn't define that. He just said she was assumed into heaven, but he was careful not to. He worded it in a way that.
As he did, he was very careful in his wording. He was a diplomat. I mean, that was his job, But so that you're saying that this dogma was only defined by the church when did Pius live?
1950, November
wild.
1950. Yeah, I remember when I was first coming into the church, and I would get into chat discussions with some of my friends, and they would always point to that and say, oh, well, there's no evidence for it in the Bible, and it wasn't even a defined dogma until 1950. But I would always point out, I'm like, yeah, but there's all kinds of evidence that the church recognized this long before that. I mean, even 100 years before that, there's a church in Columbus, Ohio, named after the Assumption. It's called Assumption Church in Columbus, Ohio, and it's the groundbreaking for that church was in 1866 or somewhere around there. Yeah. So close to 100 years even before.
Well, if we're looking at paintings from the 400s and the 500s of this event, then clearly this is the oldest tradition of the church.
Right. And the church doesn't. The church has sort of a practice of not dogmatically defining something that's just kind of accepted by everybody until it becomes an issue.
Right.
And so then they felt it necessary to I mean, even the canon of the Bible wasn't even dogmatically defined until around the time of the Protestant Reformation or somewhere thereabout, right?
Well, dogmatically defined by a full council of the church. What's the one before Trent? I'm forgetting. Was? I can't remember. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's even the basic teachings that we know now about the seven sacraments are defined at Trent. So, so in the 1500s. Yeah. But that doesn't mean there weren't seven sacraments before that. Yeah. That just means that there was, usually definitions come because there's a challenge to something. Yeah. Because someone says, no, that didn't happen.
Yeah, it becomes necessary.
Then, when it's necessary, then the church defines it. But the church lived it for century after century. Now they got to just make it clear, yes, this is what we're talking about. This is what happened. Yeah. And I kind of like that so much of what we know dogmatically about Mary is the product of the church's reflection on the somewhat limited information we have about Mary from the Bible. Mm-hmm. Although there's more about Mary in the Bible than I think some of our Protestant challengers would like to admit. There's a good deal about her in there.
Oh, sure.
But the fact that a lot of the Marian dogmas really, you go, well, where is that in the Bible? Well, okay, that's gonna be work if you're gonna say it. First of all, it doesn't contradict anything in the Bible. There's no Marian doctrine that contradicts even in the slightest anything in the Bible. But also, it's not just based on biblical evidence. This really is like Mary is the exemplar of the church, and here she is. Her dogmas are like. You have to, in order to defend the Marian doctrines, you have to defend that the church has the authority to teach in Christ's name. Right. You have to, or you're not going to get to the Marian dogmas. Whereas you could, defend the divinity of Christ just from Scripture, probably. Yeah. It would be hard. It took the church 3 centuries to finally say divine person, assumed a human nature, all that kind of stuff. So all that is the church is doing. That's not in the Bible. Well, the Bible itself is the church is doing, but that's just a very Catholic way of thinking about things. It's like Jesus didn't abandon the church when the apostles left. The church still has the authority to teach, and doesn't get it wrong. You know, when it defines these dogmas. So, either of you, why is it important? So, August 15th. We didn't say the date, did we? August 15th is the feast of the Assumption. Mm-hmm. Is the same date in the Byzantine
Yes,
Right?
I think so, because right now they're doing a Dormition fast. So I
Okay.
haven't officially become a Byzantine Catholic. I haven't canonically switched over. But they're doing the Dormition fast, and I think it ends on Thursday. So
Well, let me try to talk you out of being a Byzantine Catholic. They fast a lot more than we Latin Catholics do.
they do fast a lot.
So, I mean,
I need to get on that program, man. I'm trying to lose 15 pounds.
I think maybe
they
they'll
got it
have
right.
a little bit less time in purgatory, though, because they fast so
Yeah.
much.
it is funny how in Western society we treat fasting like it's just the worst thing. It's the
Yeah.
hard, and the tradition in the church is a lot of fasting. And
Yeah.
like in medieval times, there was a lot more fasting than there is
And a
now.
lot more than we do now. I
Yeah.
feel like we're almost kind of pampered now.
Yeah,
You know.
They do a fasting period in Advent and in Lent
Yes, right. The
Before
tradition in the East is always
Christmas
in
and before Easter.
right.
And it's intense. They basically have to be vegan for however many.
wow.
It's like 6 weeks or something.
Yeah.
But
So they're fasting for Mary right now. They're fasting for what do you
yeah,
call it?
the Dormition.
The Dormition fast.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I don't know about the Eastern Orthodox. They often have it. I'm sure that they have a feast day for it, but I don't know if it's the same feast day. But it'll be the 15th. We'll be off
Yes.
of work and go to mass somewhere because it's a holy day,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, and we're really lucky because we have a chaplain, so he's still saying mass for us here if we want to come.
I will not be coming.
You
here.
will not
I
be.
live too far away.
I
I will
will
be going
be.
to my parish
Yeah.
near my house.
I live right across the street from the mission, San Diego Mission de Alcala.
Like you can just walk across.
I walk to church every Sunday.
I've always wanted to live somewhere where I could walk to church.
Yeah.
That's awesome. My church is just slightly too far from me.
Yeah, so I'll go there. Actually, so we have mass here every day, but if for some reason I have trouble dragging myself out of bed, by the time I get home, there usually is a mass going on right when I pull up. So I can, if I miss it here, I can go there.
What a life you live.
It's pretty nice. And there's church bells. I hear church bells every morning and every evening.
It's beautiful.
And it's pretty cool. Not
That
gonna
is
lie.
really cool.
Yeah.
So, will they ring the bells on the feast
Oh,
for
yeah.
Mary?
Oh yeah.
So, maybe we could think about like for someone who's not a Catholic listening, or even Catholics who don't know, why do we celebrate this? So Jesus took her body and soul into heaven. Yay for Mary. That seems good for her. What does that got to do with me or the church?
Man, for me personally, the way I view it is what a role model she is of what God's grace can do, what is possible for all of us. That to me is just, all of the Marian dogmas really are a point toward that. Like,
Yeah.
what can this is how much God loves you, and and this is available to you too. Obviously, I'm not going to get assumed into heaven, but I will reach a glorified state someday.
You might get assumed into heaven
Well, maybe
because,
I don't know.
when Christ comes,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
isn't that everybody gets caught up into the?
yeah, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to pull a Harold Camping or something, and end up,
Do you know who Harold
getting in
Camping is?
No.
Oh, I love Harold Camping, but he's passed now, right? I think
Yeah,
he's gone. And
yeah.
he was just wonderful to listen to on the radio because he had such an old timey voice.
Mm-hmm.
But and I do something like him when I take calls. I find your next question, please. He always said that. Sometimes I do that. But Harold Camping was determined that he knew when Christ was coming back, and he
Yeah.
told everybody. And as much as I say I love the guy, I really did. It was awful what he did. It was awful.
and there was.
I don't know what happened, so maybe somebody
he
could
claimed
fill me
that he said that the this was like a few years ago, and he said he had claimed that he had done some biblical calculation, and here's when Jesus is coming back, and of course that day came and went. Jesus says very clearly in Scripture that we're not going to know the day or the time, and so that signifies to me that whatever I think it's going to be is wrong.
Oh,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like you
Right.
can sit there and try and.
But what if it's like this? You think it's going to be this certain day, and then you think that's got to be wrong because I think it's that day, and then it is that day because you did that. No, that's never.
Or
No,
we could just
I don't think it's
focus
gonna-
on living our lives.
Yeah, I
and
think that's the point.
Well, the
when
problem with
Lord
Harold
comes, the Lord
Camping
comes.
was that a lot of people believed him, and they made very they made decisions based on the fact that the world was ending. So
they had insurance for like when all the good people disappear or whatever, they had like dog insurance, so somebody could
take care of their dog
if the Christians got raptured.
But many people just like stopped paying their mortgage on their house, and they just like because they believed that it was all coming to an end.
And then when it doesn't happen, I mean, this is another good reason to not do that, is when it doesn't happen, you open every Christian up to ridicule, because they're like, oh, look at these silly Christians.
I know, so much ridicule,
you
right?
know, it's like, just stop, please.
And that's what St. Augustine warned about, even back in the 5th century. St. Augustine used to say, don't get caught up in these really basically silly ways of understanding the faith. Understand it as an adult, as a grown-up. Don't understand it as a child,
right?
Because you embarrass all the other Christians when you like. Augustine was talking about the first 11 chapters of the book of Genesis when he was saying, look, if you say there's no analogy here. If you say there's no, what was the word? Anagogy, I think, is the word that he used. But if there's no like symbolism or poetry in this is just all literally true. God did this on this day, this on this day. He goes, you look foolish.
Yeah.
Because they can see that, well, how did he make light before he made the sun?
Right.
It's obviously there's a problem with your thinking if you're thinking that way.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. We shouldn't do those things. We shouldn't be so connected to really. We got to be adults about the faith in order to not scandalize other people and not open the faith to ridicule.
Yeah, but the assumption. So getting back to that, I think it says to me that this is the glory of God. This is what's waiting for everybody.
Yeah.
And you've got this beautiful role model to look at. And I think that is, I don't know, it's a beautiful thing to me. And I feel like a lot of people who aren't Catholic or Eastern Orthodox or, mostly the Protestant or evangelicals that kind of dismiss a lot of the teachings on Mary.
Yeah.
I think they're really missing out.
Oh, I think so. I mean, that's really, I mean, as much as we love our Protestant brothers and sisters, the Protestant Reformation just oversimplified the faith. It's what it is. It's basically an oversimplification of the faith. Yeah. And again, that we need to be more adult than that. There's much more to the faith than, just stripping it down to what's the minimum? What do I got to know? What do I got to do? What phrase do I have to say to be saved? Mm-hmm. No, there's so much more to faith than that. Yeah. So much more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jesus gave us his blessed mother at the foot of the cross and said, behold your mother. And Mary was given to us as a gift, as an intercessor for us. And the Assumption sort of reminds me of, she's, like John said, she's our role model. She's our greatest intercessor, and she's taken to heaven in such a glorious way. And she wants us to come to heaven too, to be with her son. All she wants is for souls to be in heaven with her son.
Right.
And so I think it's a really hopeful reminder, and it's a confirmation that when we pray asking Mary to intercede for us, then we know because of this feast, we know she's in heaven. Like, we have certainty that she's in heaven with our Lord, and
physically
that she can actually intercede for us. Yeah. I think that's, intercession can be a little bit difficult to understand if you're not Catholic, but if you would think about it like asking your own mom here to pray for you, or me asking John to pray for me about something that's coming up in my life, that wouldn't be abnormal at all. In fact, we do ask each other for prayers. Right. And so I find this feast day very hopeful, and just a reminder that there is so much more ahead than what we have here on earth. This is not the final destination.
Amen to that.
That's beautifully said. Yeah. Very well said. I also feel that this feast illustrates something else that we sometimes make a mistake of in our religious faith, which is over-spiritualizing it. That God loves our spirit somehow and not our body. Mm-hmm. It's only the spiritual that matters to him, and the rest of it doesn't. And sometimes we can give that testimony by saying, well, Like we really admire a saint like Francis who denied his body in service to others. But Francis's denial of the body is not a hatred of the body.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the primary things that faced the early church was the Gnostics. And the Manichaeans who say, well, the body is evil. Everything physical is evil. Only spiritual things are good. And this feast says, nope. Jesus took her body and soul into heaven, and her body was glorified. It's not the same, it's not in the same condition it was before.
Physically present in heaven. What does that look like?
Yeah, like what is that?
That's mind blowing to me. I accept it. I can't wrap my mind around it, but I try.
Yeah.
But I'm so curious.
I know.
So many questions.
Yeah.
But through philosophy, the church can, and it's theologizing, it can kind of say some things about what that is like, that a glorified body is not like St. Paul calls it a spiritual body. So it's obvious it can do what you would normally say only a spirit can do, like pass through walls, that kind of thing, like Jesus did.
Wow.
But which I don't know. That makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I feel like, is there any privacy there in heaven? I mean, come on. People just come right through the wall.
You probably don't care, but when you said passing through walls, I immediately thought of that book, The Men Who Stare at Goats. Those guys are trying to use their mind to walk through.
Oh, goodness.
Right, yeah. But the goodness of the body is something that I think the Catholic Church is better at teaching than any certainly all these people who say that these movements for sexual liberation and all of this stuff about that always break down into becoming self-centered and selfish. They don't have a better view, a more glorious or joyful view of what the human body is than the Catholic Church does.
Yeah.
They don't.
Absolutely. And when you start to say that, the body is evil, then you really fall into a world where God has sort of placed us here, and then he's just sitting back and watching until we're only spiritual beings coming back to heaven, which doesn't make sense. God is very intimate and personal with us. He wants us to have a relationship with he wants us to have a relationship with him here on earth and in heaven, and he wouldn't create these bodies for us if he didn't want us to care for and live in these bodies,
right.
At least for some period of time.
Right. And he physically touches people.
And that's evident in church teaching and, with Christian burial. And even when we went on the Danube River cruise with Catholic Answers last year, we visited a few places where they had these, there was sort of the lower part of the church, and they had all these human skulls stacked up.
Oh, yeah.
And at first, walking through there, it looked pretty morbid. I was like, wow, even the even the director, the tour guide was saying, because I was talking to her about it privately, and she's like, yeah, it's kind of weird and this and that. But I went and started reading on it, and apparently those started because, during the time of, there was plagues going on, wars, a lot of people were, they were, instead of just, digging up bodies and throwing them into a mass grave or something, they took the time to they needed burial places for new people who were dying.
Right.
And so they, instead of just discarding these old bones or whatever, they dug them up out of the ground, cleaned them off, and stacked them neatly in these underneath churches.
Right. Lovingly.
Right.
Anyway, that's what that shows.
Right. It's very organized, the way it was all stacked up and everything. It was pretty interesting, but just a reflection of what the church teaches about the physical body and the reverence that there should be toward it.
Yes, and for the medieval people too, there's a certain kind of the period of Christendom. There's a certain kind of acceptance of the body that is not puritanical in the way that, say, the Puritans who came to the United States and the Pilgrims who came over. Mm-hmm. There's when you see a fully Catholic community like there was in Europe in the 12 or 1300s.
Yeah,
there's much less prudery about the body, much less there's a very strong sense that sex is for marriage, and there's a very strong sense about the propriety of marriage and all that, but there's not that wild American uptightness about the physical body and about sexuality. And these are things that are meant to be a vibrant part of life, you know, like
Yeah.
it's all part, and it's good, and it's not treated as bad. It's treated as good.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and Mary has a lot to do with that, with the Assumption. I mean,
That, yeah, I'm glad you brought that point up because it's really good. I actually, until just now, had never even thought of that. So thank you.
oh, you, I said something new for John.
Yeah. No, I like that.
You're
That's
welcome,
cool.
John.
Hey.
Have you got $5 on you?
Can I make a check out later?
While we're in the mood,
Wow.
maybe
Can I ask the accountants to get you?
I
that?
just want to say that John always walks around saying, "Where's my money?"
I do,
to
man.
everybody.
I'll walk up to people and just say, "Hey, where's that $5 you owe me?" One time, somebody actually said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot," and gave me a $5 bill. I waited just a couple minutes and gave it back. I'm like, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't do this.
I would do that if you said that to me. I'd be like, ooh, I must have totally spaced that one. By the way, you're listening to Catholic Answers today on Radio Maria US, a Christian voice in your home. I am Cy Kellett, your host, joined in studio by assistant producer Marie and Chief Operating Officer of Catholic Answers, John. Oh, it's going to come to me. Sorensen.
Sorensen
With
an E.
Oh, is there another way to spell Sorensen?
Yeah, S-O-N. Mine's S.
Oh, Soren's son. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So does yours mean the
Son.
same thing? Like you're the son of Soren?
It means
Are
the
you
same thing, but mine
Sauron? Is that what you...
Sauron, son of Sauron, the Eye of Sauron. That's how.
That's horrible.
Yeah, that's my job.
Really?
No.
Dad.
All right.
Come on, Dad.
Somebody's trying to get my ring and throw it into molten lava.
Oh my goodness.
I accidentally dropped the ring in the fire, Dad. Why are you so mad? All right, I want to talk to you about the Pew Research. Pew does really good work on religious questions. There are a lot of kind of survey people who really do a lousy job surveying on religion, and they do a lousy job because they don't realize how complex people's religious beliefs are. It's like, do you believe in God? Yes or no? And then you get, on any given day, 70% of people say yes, 90% of people, 80%. It's a lot of it has to do with how you phrase the question.
Sure.
You change the one word in a question about whether you believe in God, and people will change their answer because people are very, very complex and subtle in their religious beliefs. Now, Pew does a really good job of this. Also, the Center for Applied Research in the Apostolate, CARA. You can always look up CARA. They have wonderful research on, CARA is specifically on the Catholic faith. Pew more generally does really good surveys and polling on religious beliefs. So they wanted to find out about Catholics, all right, and what do Catholics believe. So how about this? Let me just throw a couple at you, see what you think about this. How do you think Catholics do on the question, do you believe in God?
Oh, gosh.
What percentage of Catholics do you think believe in God?
Please let it be more than 50%.
I think it's probably way more than 50%.
Let it at least be that, though.
I think it's 76%.
76%. That's very precise. Well, the way that the choices they gave, and I should have given you the choices: believe in God, absolutely certain. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This is actually a really good number. I think 64%.
Okay, good.
64% of Catholics are
That's-
absolutely certain God exists.
That's good.
Now, I would bet among evangelical Protestants, for example, that number would be higher, because those communities are formed differently than the Catholic churches. People think that that you're saying something bad about the Catholic Church if you say that, but the Catholic Church is much older, has much more of a tradition of families being a member. You don't choose,
Right, there's a lot of cultural Catholicism.
Right. If you're in an evangelical Christian church, you're there because somebody got to you and you chose to, and that's where you are. And that's why it's
Sure.
often very exciting too, because it's got that feel of being new and fancy and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing that Catholics would. My guess is that evangelical
64% is pretty good. I think
64% are absolutely certain that God exists,
That's great.
and then believe in God fairly certain, 27%.
Oh, okay.
So we're already up to 91% of
That's
Catholics
good.
are either completely certain or fairly certain. 91%.
And honestly, everybody has times where they kind of have doubts and struggle. So
Not me. Really?
If-
You do?
Yeah, at what
What?
point in that person's life did they ask the
sure.
question?
That's
So
true,
like
right,
if
that's a
you
very
got
good point.
somebody on a day when they were, like having a struggle type day, then I could see putting fairly certain.
Yeah,
Yeah, even Mother Teresa had the dark night of the soul.
Right.
So, I
Yeah.
mean,
that's right. Believe in God, but not too certain, not certain at all. That's 8%.
Okay.
Not sure if they believe in God or not, 1%. I wonder if these people are going to mass. And
Yeah.
then do not believe in God. 2% of Catholics do not believe in God. And then,
And I wonder if those people are, like you said, culturally Catholic, or they were born into a Catholic area or family, and they're just, they call themselves Catholic, but
or they're having a bad day.
they're
as you
having
said,
a bad day.
or they're just like,
Yeah.
they're, all right, how important is religion? See, here again, I think that evangelicals would score much higher than Catholics. How important is religion in one's life among Catholics? Now, there's a certain set of evangelicals say, no, I don't believe in religion.
yeah.
I believe in Jesus. I don't believe in religion at
Mhm,
all. I don't want
mhm.
it. Keep your religion. All right.
Yeah.
Am I
What they
doing-
really mean is organized religion, because if they're
Yeah.
Christian, they have a religion.
Right, but then they have all their rituals. Then you
Sure.
got the altar call, you got the show up, you got the you don't believe in religion, but you do a lot of religion.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
so
gonna say 50%.
really 50, John.
I hope it's higher. than
Religion
that.
is very important. What?
70?
Wow. You're very optimistic. Only 64% were certain that God exists, and you're saying 70 is really 58.
Okay.
58%,
Right
and then
there in the
somewhat important 32%. We need to get that number up. I mean, the somewhat important. We need to go to the book. I think it's the Book of Revelation, right? Be either hot or cold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Come on, people.
Yeah.
Hot or cold. If
Yeah.
you're lukewarm, what's Jesus going to do?
Yeah.
Spit you out of his mouth.
And
Well, yeah.
Saint Faustina says that in her diary too, that Jesus said to her, he doesn't want lukewarm souls. He wants people who are making a decision about their faith.
Yeah.
course. Of
A
course
lot of
that's
people
what-
just don't think about the question. I mean, when I was raised Catholic, left the church, after my folks at a very young age. I didn't even make it to confirmation, and didn't come back until much later. And I can tell you that whole time away, 20 years away from the church, I didn't think about religion at all, because it's just not something none of my
just wasn't
people in
there.
my circle didn't talk about it, didn't
Right.
really care. And so you don't ponder any of those questions.
Yeah.
So you're not even thinking about it, and because there's not somebody there challenging your belief. You know what I mean? I watch the TV. I believe the same thing that everybody else does.
Yeah.
It's
It's almost like we need Catholic radio stations.
Oh,
Like they should start Catholic radio stations. Like there should
That's
be
a
like
good idea.
Radio Maria somewhere.
And Catholic
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
just being kind and witnessing to the people in their lives.
Oh, knock it off with the gospel. Really?
Oh,
Really?
stop it.
Yes,
I think
right.
I think that's
The key?
that would go a long ways.
Friendship, man. That's
Yeah.
how it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Friendship, or when you meet a kind person, you kind of wonder, what is it that makes them kind, and why are they choosing to be the way that they are every day? It makes you curious.
Yeah, don't start with the truth bomb. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like-
it's like you're going. If you don't believe this, yeah. Well, okay.
I don't know that really sways anybody.
Here's the one. This is one of two that really bothers me about the Pew Research, if I
Okay.
may. Attendance at religious services among Catholics. First of all, religious services, really?
Mass.
It's called Mass.
or liturgy.
Um,
Yeah.
all right. What percentage do you think goes at least once a week? And keep in mind, 25% of these people are lying. No,
Oh my gosh.
I'm just making that up. But at least once a week, 39% say they go at least
I was
once a
going to
week.
say 34%.
Really?
So,
So,
That so I'm the best. That's
yeah, you
what
are.
I'm
Well,
saying.
we already knew that. Though. We don't need
Yeah.
more proof of that. 39%. I actually think that's kind of high. I don't know. I think
I heard a similar number to
Did you?
that recently, but I think it was 34% is what I heard.
so.
Maybe
2
that
in 5.
was for
2 in 5
San
Catholics
Diego.
are going to mass weekly.
Man,
That is related to the one that I want to get to. But all right, but once a month or a few times a year, that's 40%, and then seldom to never 20, and then don't know is 1%.
Could you imagine, though, if we could just motivate that 40% to
Yeah,
come to Mass, how much different
the world would
okay,
be.
Yeah.
John, make your best pitch to the people listening. Why should they go to mass?
It's good for you. It's really good for you. I can tell you, when I started going to mass every day, it started out, my wife, talked me into going with her, and then I started going because I wanted to go, and it just changed my life. It's and I look forward to it. It's not like, oh, I got to go to mass. It's once you realize, brush up, read up on what it's about, what is happening there, and you will see just how beautiful it really is. And then you'll want to go.
Yeah.
And your life will change. I guarantee it. Being closer to God, it does not ever make things worse for you. There's a peace that comes with that. Even when things could be like crumbling around you in your life, you go to mass and you're better able to deal with those things.
Yeah.
Because you're focused on God. It helps you focus on the things that are most important.
And if you want to know what's happening in the mass, you can go to Catholic.com and look. We have articles up about that, but
tons,
really good stuff. Really good stuff. Yeah, just go to Catholic.com, just put in the word Mass or Eucharist, and you'll get more reading than you wanted to get today.
I think people aren't nice enough to themselves to, like, they think about, so let's say you're not in the habit of going to Mass each Sunday, and then you think about it and, maybe you feel a little weird because you haven't been in a while and you don't want judgment, or you think you might not remember what to say, or some of the best advice I've ever gotten from a priest when I was experiencing a period of time where I didn't really want to go to mass. He said, just allow yourself to go and sit silently, or stand or sit silently if that's what you need to do, and just be present there with the prayer. People are praying around you, the priest is praying for you.
Right.
Just, if that's what you can do, go sit and be there with Jesus, because he's working on you a little bit at a time, and you might not notice that something's happening.
And
then
he's right.
all of a sudden you're like, wow, I was just able to forgive my brother. Or,
I have to say, over the course of my life, that has been the thing that keeps surprising me. And it's so stupid to be surprised by it, is that, Christ actually works in your life. Like, if you go there and you're in his presence, all of a sudden stuff works out in a relationship, or like you said, you couldn't forgive someone and now you have the power to forgive them. And the power to forgive is a very great power to have.
Yeah.
Or you have peace of mind about something that you never had peace of mind, or you overcome something that you could not previously overcome. Yeah. So that was very good advice from that priest, because Jesus he's not just like doing nothing there at the Mass.
No.
He's at work on your soul.
Yep.
He's not requiring much of you, but he wants to make you freer than you've ever been before. He wants to give you a peace that will last forever.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that, like Mary, again, to go back to Mary, just a trusting yes. Like, I don't understand, even if you're in that part of your, as they call, journey, where you're like, I don't know about any of this. You just say that to him. I don't know. I don't know about any of this, but I trust in you. He's going to be okay if you say that, right?
Not the first time he's heard that one. I'm sure.
Yeah. So, he doesn't mind. You just tell him that and say, "But I trust in you." But I think adding the "I trust in you" part, it opens something in us that allows God's grace to come in, because he does want us to
choose. He wants us to be making a decision.
So I'm going to trust you that I'm going to come here and let you work and do your thing.
And you can just relax. I mean, when do we get an hour to just sit and kind of relax? I mean, you don't have to do anything. Maybe you're listening and you do volunteer in the church, and that's wonderful, and I'm sure that's edifying for you. But if maybe you just need an hour to like relax with God, you don't have to. You're not performing. You're not helping do anything. You just have to be there and just take it in.
Yeah.
And that's really nice. When I'm really tired, I like going to Mass, because it's like an hour of just, relaxing and meditation and just time to pray that I wouldn't normally set aside so easily.
Yeah. Yeah. So. And Jesus is there.
And Jesus is there.
Jesus is there. Like that. Okay. So that's the other one I wanted to get to from the Pew Research Center. All right. So, this is the headline from the Pew people themselves. 7 in 10 U.S. Catholics believe bread and wine used in communion are symbolic.
7 out of 10 believe that it's symbolic?
Yeah. which is a strange thing because, of course, we also believe, like the teaching of the church is that it is symbolic, but it is a symbol that makes present the thing that it symbolizes by the power of God. So
Right.
that we don't say, well, it's not symbolic. Yeah, bread, wine, those are symbols of life and of they have all of these meanings, blood and flesh and all.
Yeah.
It's all there symbolically.
Yeah.
But they're symbols that actually affect what they say they affect. They
Yeah.
actually make present the thing that they're symbolizing.
Yeah, Tim Staples wrote a good article on our website about that. Don't discount the symbolic aspect of the Eucharist.
Catholic.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, Catholic.com. And he makes some really good points, but not to the exclusion of the real presence,
Yeah, right. So only 28% of Catholics know the church teaching about transubstantiation. Now, see, that's the problem. I think people can believe, but you have to tell them. You have to explain what's happening here.
I had a friend who she converted to Catholicism about 4 years ago. We went to high school together, and over the course of many, many years, like 8 or 9 years, we would occasionally have conversations about things, and she went to mass sometimes with one of her friends and sometimes with me. And she told me early on in this was before she even thought about converting, I think. She said she walked into her first Catholic mass, and the consecration took place, and everybody was going to receive, and she knew that she wasn't supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that she felt like an overwhelming peace and an overwhelming like desire to go receive.
Yeah.
And she said I'm in tears right now. She said like she knew that Jesus was there.
Right.
Like it was like this overwhelming person in the room.
Yeah.
Like she became Catholic, a few years after that. But
She's not the only one. That has happened throughout the history of the church many, many times. As a matter of fact, if you're thinking, maybe I'm being called into the Catholic Church, a great way to test that, and I don't mean like testing God, but test it like by discerning, go to a Catholic Mass, or even if there's not a Mass going on, go to a Catholic church and ask, are you here? I want to know. Just let me know if you're here. And you're going to get a yes. If your heart is open, if you're not just going there in a grumpy way, but you're going there he will let you know that he's there. I know it. And now, in my own life, sometimes those answers take a year, 5 years, 10 years. Like I'm not saying he's going to give you an answer today. Some people get like that, just get that answer.
Well,
but he will answer you. If you ask him with sincerity of heart, are you really present here?
mm-hmm.
He'll make sure you know. He's not going to hide that from you.
And when you do know that it's Jesus, it's the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist, it is such a relief to know that like you're receiving the Lord each day or every Sunday, and that he is literally inside of you. You've become a tabernacle, and he's helping you to do the things that you need to do each day, because sometimes we have difficult people in our lives, or
sometimes
difficult jobs, or difficult
work with John.
And it's like you don't have to rely on your own strength. I always say this. You have to rely on the strength of God, and he is physically present with you. He's giving you himself physically and spiritually. Like, you guys, you got to take advantage of the fact that this is available in the United States everywhere. There are Catholic
Every
churches
day.
everywhere every day
Mhm.
that are offering the Mass. And
Right.
you need to be receiving, because you need that strength and you need that peace.
Right.
It will make your life so much fuller and richer.
Jesus does that. That's what he does. Fullness of life. That's what he's like, the world champion of fullness of life. He came that they may have life and have it to the full. Okay, so I want to I messed up these statistics a little bit. So the 28% is people who know what the church teaches about transubstantiation, which means the bread and wine are annihilated. They no longer exist. And what is there is Jesus under the appearance of bread and wine. It's Jesus'
His
body and his blood,
Yeah.
and his living body and blood, not like cannibalism, but he is fully present, body, blood, soul, and divinity in what was the bread and wine, but they still have the appearance of bread and wine, or what's called the accidents, the taste and the smell and all that, right? Even if you looked all the way down to the molecular level, you'd see that. But that's not what is actually there. The substance of what's there is Jesus. So 22% know that that's the teaching and accept it.
Okay.
28% know that that's the teaching and accept it. 22% know that that's the teaching and don't accept it. And then there's a whole bunch, like 43%, and then that have other feelings. But like the biggest chunk is 43%. They think that the church teaches that the bread and wine are symbols.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. 43% think that. Like maybe a little bit of preaching on the Eucharist is needed. That here's what we teach. What you are receiving is not bread and wine.
And when you get, there are some really great priests. Actually, one of the priests that John has over at the mission, he always says, at the end of his homilies, he always turns and, looks at the altar and he says, "We're about to encounter Jesus in the Eucharist." Like, actually Jesus.
Yeah.
He doesn't say like actually Jesus, as I just
that's
said.
a helpful thing.
He might need to, though. I mean, because I think sometimes maybe it seems obvious to you and I who know what the teaching is and accept it, but unless there are some people who maybe it needs to just be like really spelled out more often.
Right.
But also, I don't mean to get on a soapbox. I get pretty animated about this because it's like, what you and I were talking about earlier is the Mass itself, in the way it's conducted ought to mirror that teaching. And
we're out of time, John. Sorry.
Right. And in a lot,
John gets very passionate
do you
about
mean
this.
in the reverence?
I think in the reverence and not just the reverence, but in the way that the way that the Mass is the reverence, the way it's conducted, the amount of care that's put into
the architecture of the church.
The architecture of the church is a big thing. Like Cy and I were talking about it this morning. I said, he thinks I'm being hyperbolic, but I would say 90% of Catholic churches out there look, not that much different than the inside of a high school cafeteria, but it's got a crucifix in it.
Doesn't that seem slightly hyperbolic?
It's a little too, that number's a little too high, but I get what you're saying.
Sean doesn't believe it.
I don't know, man. Maybe that's just my experience, but you go into a lot of churches, very kind of plain Jane, and it's not, like you were saying, the older ones are awesome.
Yeah.
Do we have to take a break? Is that what the music is?
No, that's the end.
That's the end.
That really is the end.
I have to say, though,
Tempest Fugit.
in some parishes, they do offer like walkthroughs of the Mass, and they'll explain everything. A parish here in San Diego just did this last
that's
year.
helpful.
And so if you hear about that in your parish, go attend and actually learn. I mean, somebody is there to explain it to you.
Or we got tons of materials at Catholic.com. It's all free. You can have it. Just type it in. John Sorensen, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Marie O'Malley, thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
I am Cy Kellett, your host. You're listening to Catholic Answers Today on Radio Maria, US.